I was really excited for Spore, really into it. I actually liked it and enjoyed it, but I was kind of one of the few people. I know that I was.
It's probably not too much of a stretch to say that No Man's Sky was one of the most controversial releases of 2016. Arriving to a mixture of high praise and damning criticism, the eventual consensus was that the game was generally a disappointment. The myriad of technical issues, missing features, and generally frustrating survival gameplay left most experience of the game lacking. The lofty ambitions of a practically infinite universe generated by complex math featuring quintillions of planets to explore and adventure on were technically achieved. The simulated universe exists, but it's not exactly one that's filled with exciting characters and things to do. The creatures that populate about half the planets are clunky and derpy, regularly glitching into the environment and failing to interact with each other in any meaningful way. The most common planet-side activities are just wandering around and mining, which then leads to having to fly off into space to flog all the items that rapidly filled your laughably small starting inventory. On release, the game was quickly identified as missing a shitload of features, many of which still have made it into the full game. The most obvious of these is the multiplayer element, which was essentially sold as a soloist MMO, and everybody would inhabit this functionally infinite universe, occasionally bumping into each other and sharing their journeys. An ambition too far, because despite what Sean Murray was selling, and he was selling a lot, there's nothing multiplayer about No Man's Sky. In fact, most of the stuff he was rambling about isn't here. It's not unfair to say that in all those press interviews, Murray was lying. He was misleading people and basically promoted the game with a load of bollocks. The promotion, while driving a ton of sales for the game, has given it a pretty bad rep. It's known for being a flop, a product of a hype machine pushing a product that didn't actually exist. And while it sold a lot, it also got refunded a lot, and it's easily pointed to as yet another warning about hype culture and how you shouldn't buy into press releases or believe whatever promoters are saying, because sometimes they're just fucking liars. Just look at Watch Dogs or Colonial Marines. Since release though, there have been regular updates to the game, some of which have been pretty massive. So far they've all been free and have actually expanded pretty heavily on the original release, adding in some features that were originally promised. For example, now you can build yourself a base and set a home planet which you can get attached to without inevitably losing it in the vastness of space, as I've done with every other planet I've visited before they did this. You can more easily find things to do by constructing machines to locate local landmarks for you. You can buy a big old spaceship to store your contents of your inventory if you're a compulsive hoarder of useless crap. There's extra game modes featuring the hardcore survival approach or chill exploration and building mode, so you can finally build a space colony in the shape of a penis without pesky resources keeping you from that iridium dong. You can even hire people to be your mates and hang out your base working for you, which might somewhat alleviate the general isolation of the actual gameplay. The core problem of the game still stands though. This universe of however many quintillion planets that nobody will ever see is still repetitive and lacking in meaningful diversity. There are roughly 8 types of planets you can land on. There's some interchangeable colour schemes that vary between these, and the actual life on the planet is pretty uniform throughout the universe. Same goes for plant life, mostly either chunky trees or small flowers, mushrooms on pretty much all planets, even the dead worlds for some reason. There are no ocean worlds or gas giants, every planet's got the same gravity, and with few exceptions, the surface is just hilly and rocky with the odd cave or lake. Practicality prevents there from being any valleys or mountain ranges, or volcanoes, or really outlandish geography in general, because you just know if you had the opportunity to fall into a canyon, you'd go and do it and fuck up the game. Tailable batch ship option would have fixed this, but that doesn't exist because reasons. Once you find a planet you like, you may as well settle there because they are huge, and to be honest, unless you want to go to a different biome, which usually just makes the game more difficult, you'd be as well off staying on world. You couldn't really afford to hang about before the update because you've got less stories than women's genes, so this is an improvement. Now regarding the story, or whatever the vague narrative this game actually has, I don't really know what the fuck is going on in No Man's Sky. There's this thing called the Atlas, which seems to be driving you towards some goal from the moment you start the game at Crash Landing Site. Never really explained, but seems important. Somehow though, so does simply travelling to the centre of the universe. This seems to be the main 2 plot threads of the game, following a creepy red orb around or going somewhere for arbitrary reasons, and they might actually be the same story. There's not really any story built around them though, aside from some weird descriptions of these monoliths on planets that seem to be trying to break into your brain. Uncovering these is nice and it makes the universe feel kind of eerie, but it's mostly superficial. Also, some structures you come across have clearly been attacked by this weird goo, which happens on multiple planets. What's that all about? And the 3 alien races you can befriend, the Commando Elite, the Fat Chozo, and Daft Punk, do they have any relevance to the story? Probably not, but they're all over the place. We'll never find out what race we are, by the way. There's no mirrors in the game, so maybe we're a fuck ugly pile of leeches in a diving bell for all we can tell. Who knows? So many questions, no answers. Just like real life. Maybe that's the point. The real universe is an endless sea of nothingness punctuated by irrelevant planets and completely devoid of objective meaning. So perhaps this is just a version of that where most planets were habitable, but nobody lives on them because they all achieve spaceflight and then rapidly depopulated the entire universe in order to sit around in the spacebar for the rest of eternity, reminiscing about former glory. The story isn't the main draw of the game, but then what is? I don't really know. To be honest, there isn't one specific thing that No Man's Sky does especially well. The art direction and design, I think, are great. But 99% of the game has no adherence to these aesthetics because it's muddy procedural worlds with low-res modules and textures. The exploration is decent when you can get into it, but there's a lot of interruptions from babysitting your resource meters or having to dump half your inventory, and again, it's reliant on you having the fortune to land somewhere not completely desolate. The soundtrack is fantastic, but the sound design is kind of messy. Dogfighting is dog shit, although that is the case in most games. The atmosphere is pretty good when the game isn't glitching out by rooting your ship into a wall or driving creature models into the ground and jerking you out of the experience. It's a survival game but with rubbish controls and really weak crafting mechanics and combat. This is all sounding pretty negative, but the truth is after all the updates I actually quite like No Man's Sky. I thought it was okay before, though very limited in the actual scope of the gameplay, but with the additions of base building, better NPC interaction and a truckload of quality of life improvements, the game is pretty enjoyable as the described chill game experience, which was a minor component of the original marketing. Also, you can now set up these communication beacons which show messages, similar to Dark Souls, almost certainly never to be seen by anyone else, but they make me laugh. 10 out of 10 would snark again. No Man's Sky is a good game. It's not a great game, and the design decisions fundamental to the gameplay and the engine mean it probably never will be. But the improvements made to it vastly increase accessibility and your options to customise your experience with it and play the way it suits you. Hello Games proper fucked up the release by doing a massive Molyneux all over the place, but unlike Fable, the games were worked on and improved essentially for free over the past year, and they're not shitting on their fans like he always did. I enjoy it, even if a lot of it does look like this. The universe it presents may be a lonely and meaningless one, but just like our own, you can find your own meaning in there. Even if that comes from naming a planet Twat Ratchet.